I'll move on now to Nick Hanrahan. So Nick is Community Outreach Officer at Jesuit Refugee Service. We saw a bit of their work in the clip there. And he'll take us a bit deeper into their work with refugees and asylum seekers during the pandemic and what they've been doing to alleviate the plight of people there. So Nick, over to you.
Hi Paul, thanks very much. Good morning everyone. As Paul said, my name's Nick and I'm Community Outreach Officer at AboutJRS UK, Jesuit Refugee Service. I thought I'd just do a bit of an introduction about who we are, just to start off with, if some of you aren't aware of our normal work, before I do talk about what we've been doing since the pandemic. So we are a work of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, present in over 50 countries around the world. And our mission is to accompany, serve and advocate for the rights of refugees and forcibly displaced people. And accompaniment is the bedrock of all we do, really. We realise that we cannot solve all the problems of the refugees that we work with, but we can remain a constant presence with them and walk alongside them on their journey. Our work takes very varied forms around the world, depending on the need in each country, with particular care taken to try and reach the groups that are most marginalised or least cared for. Here in the UK, that means that we accompany those who are held in immigration detention centres and those who have been made destitute by the asylum system, usually as a result of having their asylum case refused. In normal times, we operate a day centre that is every Thursday for our destitute refugee friends, where they can come and get a hot meal, a travel grant, toiletries, as well as advice from our staff. We also run activities throughout the week at our centre which help refugees develop skills, build community and just have fun as well. We have a legal project that helps offer legal advice, and we also operate a hosting scheme which offers 3-month placements to our friends who are at high risk of street homelessness. A little bit of that was covered in the Newsnight piece you just saw there. Our work in detention sees us be a vital link to the outside world, to those who are held in the centres. We offer pastoral support and have regular social visitors who will go and visit those who are detained. On top of all this, we also do a great deal of policy and advocacy work, including a recent report we just released a few weeks ago about detention and the experiences of our refugee friends who've been detained. And we also work within the church as well to try and raise awareness and share some of the stories of our friends doing things like working with justice and peace groups and parishes and schools, that sort of thing. Now, of course, our work has been dramatically affected by the pandemic. Unfortunately, our day centre has had to be closed for the time being, as have most of the centres like ours run by charities. Obviously, that's to keep staff volunteers safe, but most importantly, keep our refugee friends safe. We know that they are very often more vulnerable to the virus, so making sure that they aren't put at risk. And I think this is really the first big impact on those that we serve. Obviously, as we say, they are destitute and they've had their financial support from the government taken away from them, and they're also prevented from working as part of the hostile environment policies that we see impacted upon those who have an insecure immigration status. So they're totally reliant on other people, whether it's friends and family they know, or it could be charities like ours, food banks, day centres, and they rely on these people for their survival, essentially. And it's common for our friends to spend their week going to different parts of London, to different day centres and food banks and that sort of thing, just to get what they need to survive. Of course, the closure of these centres means that source of sustenance has been cut off from them. And at the start of lockdown, when I'm sure most of us were busy probably stockpiling and getting things ready in case the shops were going to be bare, our friends were just worried about how they were going to get enough food for that week, not the weeks ahead. So we've taken our day centre on the road, if you like. You saw in the video there for Newsnight how we've been delivering food parcels to our refugee friends wherever they're staying. So those who are hosted in hotels have been receiving food parcels, but those who are perhaps being hosted through various hosting schemes, including our own, or who have been staying with friends and family, we've been able to get them vital food and toiletry parcels wherever they are in London. And we've also been able to provide a prepaid MasterCard that's topped up every couple of weeks with a little bit more money on a sort of an emergency grant to ensure that people have enough to see them through. Now, obviously, the virus itself is a source of real concern for our refugee friends, as it is for all of us, and for our own health and safety. And the overwhelming majority of our refugee friends obviously belong to Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups who all the studies show have been more adversely affected by the virus. On top of that, the hostile environment policies see that there are healthcare charges for all non-urgent care for people who don't have immigration status here in the UK. And that means that very often our friends have chronic illnesses that have been left untreated, or they've been unwilling to seek medical help in case they've been charged for it. So those health worries are obviously far more severe for many of our friends, and the worry that if they do go and seek NHS help, that they might be charged for it means that some people might not be willing to go if they were showing symptoms, or seek out a test and seek out the help they might need if they were developing symptoms. I know that one of our friends has actually been hospitalised by COVID-19, and so the actual fear of the virus itself is very present, obviously, for our friends. The visits that we do to our detention centres near Heathrow Airport, they have ceased because the centres have closed to visitors. Obviously, they're worried about the virus entering the centres. So we haven't been able to be physically present with those people in the centres. Obviously, we've continued offering support over the phone, but it is very difficult to sort of feel that you're with people when you're only able to offer support over the phone. Many people have been released from the centres in an effort to reduce the numbers of people there and make social distancing possible. Obviously, these centres are built to prison specifications. They're the sort of places where you can imagine infections could spread fairly quickly. So they have made an effort to reduce those populations. But that has had an adverse effect on the people that are left behind. You can imagine if you are one of the few people that's actually been kept detained, those feelings of isolation, the frustration of not knowing what's going to happen to you, whether you're going to be released, it's just made so much worse. And our friends that have been kept in detention are really struggling with those effects. We know detention's a very difficult place for people anyway. Then I think the other major concern that we've had was shown very clearly in the video there with Newsnight. The Allin scheme has hosted lots of our friends, I think 40 it mentioned in the video there. And it's great that they have had somewhere to stay during the pandemic, and somewhere where they can feel safe. That's something that many of them won't be used to, having their own room, having their own place to stay. But actually we're seeing this no recourse to public funds, meaning that people, these conditions mean that people are risking a return to the streets imminently. We've reopened our hosting scheme to new hosts, and we're working really hard to try and see what we can do to either get people into hosting schemes or to be given some sort of asylum support again. And hopefully we'll see most people being looked after in that way. But as you can imagine, the threat of returning to the streets is really preying on people's minds, and lots of our friends are extremely anxious and extremely worried about what will be happening to them. And I think that just really, the no recourse to public funds shows what a great need there is for us as people who care about justice and peace, and care about justice being promoted, needing to speak out for refugees, for immigrants, for people who might be excluded from the help that is being offered. We're talking a lot about how this pandemic is a moment of change for our society, and it would be a great shame if this moment of change continues to exclude those who have come to us seeking safety and seeking refuge. So I would ask you to keep our friends in your prayers. And if you'd like to find out any more about the work we've been doing, visit our website, www.jrsuk.net. I can send on the details. And you can also find details there about how you can help support our work during this very difficult time, including donating to our Refugee Hardship Fund.
Thank you.
But thank you very much for your time. And if anyone's got any questions, I'll do my best to answer them in the chat.
Yeah, thanks very much. That was amazing. Again, thank you, because I guess what I got from that was just how the no recourse to public funds regime pushes people into the shadows, and really, you know, it's down to people like you and JRS, and I guess all of us, because that's why we're here, to reach into those shadows and have the kind of our organisations, our networks have the agility, I suppose, to respond to the needs that emerge, and we saw that agility in Trafalgar Square. Thank you very much, Nick. Yeah,